welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole with Alice Hatter. Tonight's episode is titled, I Took Too Much Acid. My name is Alice Hatter and I was born and raised in New Orleans. Growing up, I read Go Ask Alice a few times. I thought her drug experiences seemed not super awesome. I don't know if you've ever read the book, but her drug experiences sounded kind of scary. But I also realized if drugs were awesome enough to break up families, there must be something really amazing about them. I really wanted to try acid. I really wanted to try acid. I remember looking up tripping experiences online. I would read them and wonder, what would happen if I took it? Would I see the pink elephants from that one movie? Or, what would happen? I decided I was going to try acid. And I made it happen, you guys. The weekend was coming up. I was a sophomore in high school. There was a guy who went by the name of 𝔅londe. Now, don't ask me why I knew a grown man named 𝔅londe at the age of 16 or 17. I shouldn't have known this man, but I did. Regardless, I reached out to 𝔅londe, asked him if he had a tent strip. Two of my other friends also wanted to try it. I read about the increments acid was sold online. I figured a 10 strip would be plenty for the three of us. Sure enough, 𝔅londe came through clutch. Friday after school, I walked home, ate dinner with my mom before she left for the night shift at Harrah's. Once she left for the night, I got on my bike and I rode to 𝔅londe's house. He wasn't too far from school, which wasn't too far from my mom's place. I told my two best friends to meet me about a block away from 𝔅londe's house. The sun was setting by the time I got into 𝔅londe's place. His house always smelled of nag champa and weed. He lived in one of those flooded neighborhoods. This was maybe a year or two after Katrina flooded the city of New Orleans. It was still a good time to buy acid. It was before all of those 2-CEB research chemicals came out. I smoked a bowl with 𝔅londe and his girl. He gave me the 10 strip and he warned me. He said, look, this is really, really good acid. You don't need that much. I didn't understand what he meant at that point in my life. This was my first trip. I left Dee's house with the 10 strip. It was wrapped up in some tin foil. It looked like a very skinny piece of gum. The kind with the silver foil wrapper. I met two of my friends outside, one of the many abandoned houses in that neighborhood at the time. It was really dark at this point. They were excited. Did you get it? What does it look like? What does the blotter look like? Now, I'm the kind of kid that would ask to go to the bathroom in Spanish class and power walk the entire campus until Spanish was completely over, because that teacher, for whatever reason, would allow me to do it. Every class, I would raise my hand. ¿Puedo ir al baño, por favor? He would say, sí, go. Maybe there were so many kids jammed in that tiny classroom, he didn't notice that I was gone until I came back when the bell rang. But anyways, I would get real excited about stuff. I couldn't sit still. And I was so excited about the 10 strip of acid, and so were my friends. I didn't think we would need scissors to split the acid. I wasn't that advanced yet. And it was just the three of us sitting on the sidewalk. It was starting to get dark, and only the light of the New Orleans street lights were there to guide my rips of the 10 strip. I ripped a piece for Jackie. I ripped a piece for Jane. And I ate more than half of the 10 strip myself. I broke them both off, about 2 hits each. I quickly gobbled up the other 6 hits before they could complain that their hits looked too small. I can't remember what the blotter looked like. It was pretty dark. But I remember it being kind of pink and purple. Maybe it had some flowers. I'm not really sure. I ate it quick and it was dark. All three of us had our bikes. We had eaten the acid. I think we just learned what bicycle day was, so we took our sober selves on about a 15 to 25 minute bike ride to Audubon Park. If you were lucky enough to grow up uptown, you know anyone who was anyone would meet at Audubon Park after dark. I remember we got close to the park when I saw the lights at Loyola. We entered the park and met a group of friends in one of the gazebos with the bathroom in it. That was when things started to shift in my perspective. I started seeing tracers of light from the street lights or any other lights. My friends started to look more like the people they were on the inside as well as the outside, and things just started to get really funny, and I couldn't help but giggle a lot. Once the random group of non-tripping people left, it was just me and my two amigos and our bikes. It was really starting to feel like an acid trip at this point. It was really dark, but we still had the street lights. The trees in Audubon Park were dancing like they had more life in them than I had ever seen. The branches twisted and waved at me as we rode our bikes into the golf course. I'm not sure if you've ever ridden your bike through Audubon Park Golf Course at night, but if you haven't, you're kind of missing out. It's truly a stunning experience where you're guided by the moon and the winding trail. There are parts of the course that have been cleared of oak trees and you can see straight into the night sky. There's not a ton of light pollution in New Orleans. It's not like LA or New York in that sense. I remember being able to see the stars and the moon and the clouds moving quickly across the night sky. I want to say I was by the sand pit, by the abandoned meteorite, when Jane fell off her bike. I looked back and my other friend pulled over to stop and help her. I figured I should go back and help him. I went back and my friend was on the ground laughing or crying. I wasn't sure at the time, but she was like, "You guys, I'm tripping so hard right now, there's no way I can ride my bike any longer." And we were a solid friend group at that point in my life. If one person couldn't go on with bikes, the rest of us were not going on with bikes. The three of us were tripping so hard at this point, it was difficult to see straight. I understand why she fell off her bike. I tried getting back on my bike, but I couldn't ride it anymore. I'm not sure what happened. Acid will play mind games with you like that. The simplest of things can seem like the largest, most impossible requests. But riding our bikes out of the park was out of the question. We were close enough to Magazine Street, and there was a hookah cafe that was open 24/7. We made our way there on foot. Now, I believe at this time, maybe my friends were coming down from the 2 hits they had taken, but I ate 6 hits of acid. And when we got to the hookah cafe, it took forever to get any service. I was thirsty and hot. I mean, granted, it was like 3 a.m., but still, it was almost impossible to get any service. I was growing impatient and being on way too much acid. I mean, that will give any sane person an insane ego boost. Feed any sane person 6 hits of really good acid, and you'll know what I'm talking about. The 6 hits of acid came over me, and I raised my voice. I was like, "Can we get some service in this place? Do you have any idea who I am?" To say the least, this did not get us service of any kind. It actually got us kicked out of the hookah cafe almost instantly. You're welcome. Sorry, you guys. But we were back on the corner of Magazine Street again with nowhere else to go. That's when I called it a night. I mean, our bikes were nowhere to be found, and I had gotten us kicked out of the only place open that wouldn't cart us. I had a decent walk home. I didn't have to worry about anyone being home because my mom was still at work. It wasn't 6 a.m. yet. I got home, I tried going to sleep, but that proved to be impossible. I rolled a blunt and went on our balcony. I smoked myself into tripping a bit harder before I was able to get to sleep. and making it sound much easier to get to sleep than it actually was that morning. If you've ever tripped before, I'm sure you understand what I mean. But the next morning, I called my friends and they said the park patrol had called their parents and our bikes. They brought them to Audubon Zoo and we could go claim them. That was a good feeling. I loved that bike. I remember the humidity of that night so well. We were all greasy and sweaty. We were totally unaesthetic. Instagram and TikTok would have hated us. And I love that for my childhood. We were tripping our balls off, laughing and riding our bikes through one of the most beautiful parks in America past dark. Everything in my reality at that time was put on hold for a night. My reality altered into a dreamlike state with my friends. It was an epic escape from the pain of Katrina we all had but never talked about. And the oak trees of Audubon Park lined our path for an adventure I know none of us will ever forget. The next morning I woke up and I could still feel that acid a little bit, you guys. It was less extreme, but I could still feel it in me. I felt better. I felt alive. I felt less depressed than the days leading up to the trip. Sophomore year can be hard on a kid, let alone a sophomore who is also dealing with Katrina. I think we're all looking for an escape from our home life. At least that's what it was for me. I think I had it hard as a kid, but in reality, my parents had it the worst. They lost everything they ever worked for. And as a kid, you're just there watching it all happen. Watching their moods and attitudes change towards you because you're just another thing that they have to deal with. All the adults in my life started acting differently after Katrina. Things were just more serious in general. I knew the world had so much to offer, and if I could just get out of the house and experience it, I would be better off. I felt renewed after the trip and the whole park adventure. I still felt cracked out, having been up all night and riding my bike for miles and then walking for miles and then eating 6 hits of acid. But the colors in my life felt more vivid, and for whatever reason, I felt at peace, even though I felt kind of cracked out from a wild night. Hallucinogens work in mysterious ways. And I'm not recommending you eat acid and go to the park past dark and ride your bike. This was in maybe 2007 or 2008. New Orleans is a different place now. Also, hallucinogens are not for everyone. And I want to remind you guys that these are just stories, and I never recommend anyone do anything I do or say in these videos. They're made up stories for your enjoyment. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, have a great night.